I won't work with blasphemers, you know. Look, sit back and get ready for a really wacky story. I'm Charlie from Mad Max 1. I can see the interceptor. Anyway, I live in the world today, and I look around at world leadership, and I look around at the state of the toilet paper crisis, and all sorts of people going completely and utterly mad. And I keep on hearing people saying, the bloody politicians, the whole system's buggered, we ought to have a new system. And I went, well, if you're going to do that, you've got to be able to actually become someone who can do something worthwhile. So I thought, what if Charlie from Mad Max, 40 years later, with the other actors, was still alive? And I decided, I'm going to declare the Republic of Australia. And I'm going to have a new character. And so I became Major General Rear Admiral Sir Retired Russell Theodore Diamond III, President, sometimes dyslexic, sometimes enumerate, and sometimes with a stutter, as President of Australia, and lead the country out of the quagmire, the mess and the swamp that it's in. So, in order to do that, I'm going to make Mad Max I Must 1.5 Road to the White House. And hopefully all of the other actors who are in the original film, a group of old farts like me, will be able to get together and make basically a great big political satire, which is Spike Milligan meets Norman Gunston meets Borat, on the way to becoming a world leader and leading Australia into the future. So in order to do that, you've got to have a plot for a film. So what I've decided is that Dr. Theo Cutter, Hugh Keys-Byrne, the leader of the Bikies, he now runs a chain of medical clinics and is very celebrated. He gets all of the cases that are at the end, they get delivered to his research centre and they're basically dead on arrival. And he does stem cell research and cutting edge surgery and brings them back to life, except sometimes they haven't got their full function. So someone might come back. Every single person that he operates on, he has to develop stem cells. So he cuts one toe off. But he and his bikie mates, Jean Le Garçon, is basically running an entertainment film industry along the lines of an American who started the Me Too movement named Harvey Weinstein. Kundalini is a one-handed drummer, celebrated everywhere. They all get together with Mudguts, my friend David Brax. Now David is a very, very, very interesting man. Not only is he a great actor and it has been like me, but he breeds and trains sheepdogs. And in his own laboratory, he's got this terrible Bunnings do-it-yourself laboratory where he gets ticks and he migrates them across different animals and extracts the serum. And then they all get together and have these debauched parties, like behind their front as legitimate businesses, etc. In their dungeon, they do all sorts of terrible things. And when the serum in the middle of their great big cell, there's this big vat with a whole lot of little toes in it. And that's where Dr. Toe Cutter gets his stem cell serum from. And when he mixes it with Mudguts' tick serum, it starts to have terrible effects. And they look down and some of them will start to have bits of animal growing out and they start to turn and they morph into animals. And on the way you see them go back in time. Now these bastards, behind their official fronts, they think that they've got Big Pharma over a barrel because they might have the very drug that is the drug for immortality. Unfortunately, Charlie, one of the ex-policemen, is running for president on a platform of stamp out political corruption, put an end to corporate greed. But while there is the monarchist system and all of the corruption going on in the background, they can get away with all sorts of horrible things. And they don't want a president who's going to put an end to all of the crime going on. So they're out to get him. But being the idiot that he is, President Russell Diamond thinks the bikies are on his side. And as they take him on the campaign trail, they gradually realise that actually they quite like him. But they've been given orders from the original guys to knock him off. So as we travel through the political landscape of Australia with people signing the one book that gives the president the right to stand, and that is this book here, that gives him the thought, I can actually get this done. So on the campaign trail, there's the other policemen who also go, I don't want to have anything to do with this. But this is a film with only young people in it. And it turns out that when I become president, it's very lonely. And I put an ad in the paper for an assistant to be my body double. And the only person who applies is a fella who was an Australian-born Pakistani. And when he was growing up, he became a great soccer player, and he actually won for Australia the player of the World Cup. And one day, as I'm about to meet, he gets, and I get both hit on the head by him throwing away his medallion and his replica of the World Cup. He's operated on by Dr. Toe Cutter, loses one toe. I'm lost in the bush, but wake up realising the presidency needs a really solid campaign. The Pakistani wakes up after having had his medallion removed from his head and realises that in fact he's a full-blood Aboriginal from Fraser Island. What's more, he ends up dancing for Prince Harry on Fraser Island when Prince Harry was coming out here. So he becomes my campaign manager, and we go off on the trail, and gradually all of the bikies that are following us on behalf of the guys in charge are trying to convince themselves that it's worth knocking off a really nice bloke like President Russell Diamond. They don't want to do it. And in the meantime, out in the sticks, there's a Hillsong missionary, a young fella. And when the Pakistani is on the newspaper of having nearly been killed by being hit by a medallion, a newspaper lands in the community of Aboriginal people, and they all go into grief, realising that he's the lost son of one of the Aboriginal women from the desert. And the missionary loses the plot because they won't do any work, and he starts beating them with his Bible and mashing them with his rosary, and he gets chucked out of Hillsong. And he's on the campaign trail to expose the Aboriginal person as a fake and Major General Rear Admiral Sir Russell T. Diamond as a fake. And like Starr was to Clinton and the Democrats have been to Trump, everybody wants to get him. So I'm a marked man. And gradually we are heading towards a big launch of the election campaign to be popularly elected as President of Australia. There's bikies everywhere and fans waving fan flags, pursued by the ex-Hillsong missionary. Unfortunately, in an earlier part of our story, a certain fella from the original film who's mysterious breaks open a panel van, and in the back of it are some very young attractive women who are being sold into the slave industry, and he liberates them. One of them falls in love with the missionary, and this wonderful love story occurs of the missionary gradually becoming married to a woman who helps and gives me and the Aboriginal assistant, Reverend Doctor, His Holiness I.O. Naught, mystic, visionary and prophet and founder of the Church of Non-Specific Origin, and the president get word that they're going to be assassinated. And they're driven by the bikies into a replica of a very famous place called Dallas, where Kennedy was shot. And shots ring out, and you think that the president is dead. But like many Aboriginal people in the desert, when the day was hot, everybody disappears, the buildings fall over, it's a replica, and you're left with a limousine with what looks like a dead president in it. But next to the car, when everybody's gone, out of the ground come President Russell Diamond and Reverend Dr. Io Nort. And Dr. Io Nort says, you know what? I don't think they're ready for a republic. And I say, well, we gave it our best shot. That's the plot.